Okay, we'll call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock. Please stand for the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Marie, take roll, please.
Councilman Nelson.
Here.
Councilwoman Campbell. Here. Councilman Hutchins.
Here.
Mayor James.
Here. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So move.
I second with an addition. Under Recreation Department, if we could add discussion on raise for lead open gym supervisor.
Mr. Mayor, are we taking any action on the letter of interest received for council vacancy tonight?
I don't see it on the agenda, but yeah, that's probably something that needs to be discussed, and part of the reason I asked Jane to be here tonight.
Make a motion to add it to the agenda wherever you'd like.
Okay, how about under? I don't know. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Moving on to approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from our regularly scheduled meeting on August 2nd?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes from the special meeting on August 9th?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Moving on to approval of the bills for August 16th, 2022. Is there a motion to approve deposits from August 1st through August 8th or 14th in the amount of $309,990.88?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Is there a motion to approve accounts payable for August 16th in the amount of $156,585.25?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Is there a motion to approve net payroll for August 4th in the amount of $42,567.64?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And is there a motion to approve transfers for August 4th in the amount of $73,086.60?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, moving on to correspondence, from the Food Bank of Wyoming. There's an email, discussing the, says the Food Bank would like to invite your community to join our statewide efforts. Every town to proclaim September's Hunger Action Month and to recognize the Food Bank of Wyoming and our partners in your area as we work to bring awareness and attention to hunger in Wyoming. We'd be happy to send you one of our leadership team or one of our local partners to your council meeting in September to accept the proclamation and talk about food insecurity in Carbon County. In your community, our partners are the Saratoga Food Pantry. We will of course provide as much social media publicity as possible. Please let me know if we can put your town's participation on our calendar. Thank you so much for your time and consideration. Together, let's create a hunger-free Wyoming. All my best, Sarah Gwinnett, AmeriCorps Food Security Ambassador, Food Bank of Wyoming. With that, there was also a proclamation. I guess would the council like to have someone from the Saratoga Food Pantry come to our first September meeting and we can do that next week? Okay. Would you reach out to Sarah and ask her to invite and then have that on the agenda for the September meeting? Okay, was there any other correspondence? Moving on to council comments. Does have any comments?
I don't.
John, do you have any council comments?
No, sir.
Okay, then we will move on to items from the public, food trucks. Amanda, do you want to come on up?
Yes. Okay. Hold on, I made myself bullet points. Okay. I'm attending on behalf of several of my restaurant businesses here in town and some that aren't even restaurants. On the food truck business, we have one that's been coming into town that started out kind of slow and now he's been here every Friday. And I just find it odd that we as a town, and like that they don't have to fill out a permit to conduct business or follow ordinances of the town that you guys have set, while all of our other businesses have to. I mean, I'm looking at the town of Saratoga is also a chamber member, so we should be charging a permit fee for them to conduct business. Like, they come into town, they collect money from tourists, patrons of the community, and then they drive off. That don't regurgitate back into the community. All of our local food trucks, they don't just go set up shop. They're usually invite only, special events. They don't just go out on the corner and set it up. And the ones that are local members and they're chamber members that live in the community. And so I was just bringing it to the town's attention that, we should be, as the town, we should be making them fill out a permit saying that they've been health inspected, saying that they've followed all those rules that, our local businesses have. And then you guys could collect a fee on that. And, out of town could have we could make it a substantial, like $100 for the day to come set up. We got to make it to where, like, he just comes, he sets up and drives off. So like I said, just a few businesses have reached out to me. And so I said I would come before the council and bring that to attention that, he don't have overhead. He drives in here, he sells and leaves. Where, we have businesses that are looking for workers to stay open, that are members of the community whose kids go to school here, who turn around and go to the grocery store. So I just wanted to bring that to attention. That maybe, like, I've called a few other towns and, they make them fill out a permit several days in advance and there's a fee and then they have to be checked off by the health inspector. So just something that I wanted to bring forward on a business standpoint of commerce for our community.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
But like special events, like the private events, like Saratoga Days, my Brew Fest, those are private events. So it's all covered in there. Like they're not out on the street publicly selling. They're at the event. So I wasn't gearing towards that route, more of just stopping on the side of the road and selling.
Marie, how much is a catering permit?
That is for alcohol,
Just alcohol? Okay.
and that's $25.
I see Danny in the back. I know he's got a food truck. Danny, do you run into this in other communities or?
A little bit that we have pursued it, we haven't been charging any kind of permit. I was actually discussing this with the health inspector this week. She was looking at our truck. She actually has no control over carbon count. Like when the
Right.
truck comes in, she can't even have control over it until there's a complaint. As this one in particular is licensed out of Sweetwater, I believe. That's his permit. She can't go in his truck. She can't check it until she gets a complaint. So even at the county level, she has limited say. And that's not, now she can ask to see a food service permit, and that's about it.
Hey, Danny, can you talk about the commissary agreement that you mentioned to me?
Yeah, so, and I would assume that is statewide. So we, as a food truck, have to have a commissary agreement. So say we drove up to Rollins and set up in the Tractor Supply parking lot. I see a lot of trucks there. They have to sign an agreement with some local facility that they can use their restrooms. So we have to have that. We keep them on file in our truck. So if we were to set up, even at, say, the community center for something, we'd have to walk in and talk to probably Joe in that case, say, hey, we can use your restrooms. They sign it, we sign it. We have to keep that on file so that they know we have access to running water and restrooms and things like that. So there are definitely additional requirements. And I don't know, in that case, they would need to be signing something with Family Dollar for setting up that parking lot. But yeah, I don't know about fees in other communities. That is anything we've been asked to pay, but
All right, I know Rollins has a fee that they have to pay. Mhm.
and they've got a lot of them.
Laramie does.
And Laramie does. And I've had people, when I've done events, not just here, but, with my jackpot stuff in Rollins and stuff, when we've been looking for food trucks, and the first question usually a food truck will ask, is there a fee to set up? To the town, to some entity. But I just think that is not just for the town's sake. I mean, that would be some commission in regards to, that they would follow the same ordinances that our businesses here follow. So, like I said, I came on behalf of a few of my businesses that reached out, that it was just like, hey, they're just coming in and advertising, hey, don't wait in line, just come on over. So,
And I think there's a larger question at play, at least in my mind, which is, what happens when it's 5 trucks?
right.
And maybe it never will be, and maybe I'm just being paranoid, but I think any environment that has zero process or regulation is going to be prone to be abused at some point. And so, when Amanda and I talked about it, what was it, 3 weeks ago or so?
Yes.
I thought it would be good to bring it to the council for discussion, start the conversation, just because there's probably something that we should be doing proactively, and not to be targeted towards a particular vendor that's operating right now. I don't think it doesn't come from a place of somebody singling somebody out, in my mind. I think this should be a broader conversation about, if we don't have anything on the books right now, would it behoove us to do that, this year? And that way, if we start to see more of this, it's really clear on what the process is.
Right.
And I was just looking through, because I think the zone retail business. I think it's close to retail business.
Sorry, I can't. If you're talking to me, it was breaking up. I couldn't hear you.
I'm not sure. I believe Family Dollar's zone retail business.
I think it's highway business.
Is it highway business there?
I think.
I thought highway business extended to the Riviera, but I'm not sure. But I was just looking through under retail business, under permitted use, restaurants and cocktail lounges except drive-ins. It doesn't really address food trucks, but I don't know if that would even fall within our ordinance of permitted use within that area. I haven't looked at highway business though.
When Amanda reached out to me, whatever it was 3 weeks ago, I did a quick search of the code, and I think I told Amanda, if you can recall, but I think what I said at the time was really, I think the only thing we'd have to regulate it would be the part of the special event code that talks about when retail establishments extend their retail operations out and into their parking lot for like a
Right. You called it retail encroachment into required parking.
Which, to be fair, is a little loose, right? I mean,
Right.
And
And yeah, and like I said, when I reached out to John 3 weeks ago, it was more along the lines that it started out kind of slow. And then there's just been one here every Friday. So what does that mean? Like John says, will that be more later on when it's just something to think about now? Like,
I know there's one that usually catches Saratoga on its loop, that hits different communities and comes through once a month or whatnot too, so.
And I'd also kind of want to encourage a bit of a public dialogue on this too, and take everybody's temperature about, is this, I'm assuming here, but I'm assuming that we want to allow food trucks to be able to operate in Saratoga. Like, I think that's the
Yes.
general consensus of the Chamber of Commerce. It's certainly the flavor I get
Correct.
from people I talk to. So it wouldn't be a prohibitory regulation. It would be something that would be very clear about this is allowed. However, here's how you go about it.
I guess that was more the thought of, as a commerce, I want to spread commerce. Business has been in town for 100 years or new business. But when I have businesses that have been here forever and they're like, wait, hold on, how is this? I don't want to use the word, like a toddler, this is unfair. But, that they come in and don't have to abide by some of the same ordinances or whatever that the town has put forth on them. It's just something to bring up and start discussion on.
Yeah, I guess to me, it would fall either under permitted uses within retail or highway business. And that's something that the planning commission could definitely look at. Or zoning's kind of part of their purview. If we were thinking it was more special event permit type thing, then I think that's something that the council would probably have to look at further, unless you guys disagree. I guess the question is, what's the solution and where does it need to be addressed in the ordinances? Is it more fall under special event permit, or is it more under permitted uses, within our retail business district or highway business for that matter? So.
But would we want to go into the retail or highway business? Like if somebody wanted to send a food truck down to the baseball field, right? An ice cream truck or a food truck or something like that to the baseball field, that I don't think that's highway business down there. So
Right.
those are the.
Right. And like I said, like private events, like when there's already, like I've already filled out my event documentation for Steinley Cup, there's food there and I've invited those people just like, down in, so I guess that would be the same thing if, if they were invited, it's kind of different ways to look at it. If they were invited to the baseball field for opening day or whatever, there's different ways that this could be looked at or read rather than somebody just stopping to conduct business. And that's their whole goal, not, it wasn't opening day at the Little League or Steinley Cup or Saratoga Days.
See, I guess looking at from that perspective, the special event permit would be probably where I would think it should be addressed. That way, whether it's Little League or an anniversary or a birthday party or what have you, then it's, hey, if Little League wants to have them down, for opening day, it's an event and they go through this special event permit process, would be my thought.
So I pulled up City of Laramie and they have licenses or permits that you have to apply for with the city. And it talks about where you can park and how much and for how long that season is that they can sell for. So something we might want to look into.
Like I said, almost all of the food trucks here in town and local, they're local and they're actually all chamber members as of today. So that's awesome. And I have some that are out of town. It's not to discourage that, but, or discourage our locals from going to events. But just that, I viewed it as an out of town person coming in and even the town could not capitalize on that, but get a commission for them doing business within city limits. I guess is how I was looking at it, you know. I mean, we all pay property taxes here. All my businesses that are here, they pay property taxes, and then this person, whoever it be, whether it's just a day of business or whatever, comes in. It's just, I don't know, something to think about for, like I said, I was on the town, as the town being a chamber member, it was like, oh, you know, they could charge a fee. Just like anywhere else. I mean, I had to fill out the permit for Brewfest and pay the licensing fee to have the event. So.
Joe?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know in the northeast corner of the state that there are lots of small towns in Wyoming that do vendor fees strictly for like Sturgis Motorcycle Rally, when all of a sudden there's 30 to 40 vendors that come into town selling their t-shirts, pins, hats, whatever else. And so I think that this has been done before. It'd be certainly a good place to look. I know Hewlett specifically has vendor fees, and that's to help with, you know, trash, you know, our public trash system and everything else that we've got for the city employees to go pick up. It's just an extra cost of trash liners and more time going around. And so I think this has been done before, and it should be pretty simple to copy and paste an ordinance, for lack of a better term, like a vendor fee type of situation. Thank you.
While you're considering this, how about the peach vendor that was in town a couple of days ago? The vendors are starting to come. I bought peaches from him. If I buy them there, I'm not buying them at the grocery store. And he's paying nothing, I assume, to operator.
Right. Or, you know, and I know like the farmer's market could fill out a special event for the whole season or whatever. Here we do this, whatever, and these from this time to this time. So there could be seasons for that. And then, you know, but some of those vendors up at the, and this has been another complaint, so I'm glad you brought that up, that a few of the food vendor or that go to the farmer's market just go set up on Bridge Street and conduct business just on a Saturday when they feel like it. So, yeah, maybe just a straight across vendor fee or something that lists, you know, that all kind of in one.
Okay. Yeah, it's definitely something worth looking into. So,
Thank you.
yeah, thanks for coming in. Any other items from the public? Okay, we'll move on to reports from departments, starting with town hall with the Never Forget Park.
So we met a week or two ago, and John Winter was supposed to get in touch with the engineering firm to put out requests for bids for the curb and gutter. And since he's not here, I don't know what the status of that is.
He contacted them on August 3rd
Okay.
and told them to proceed. And he called and tried to get an update, but they didn't have an update for him, so we'll follow up again.
Okay, and then I did speak with the owner of the resort property, and after discussion with his family and his accountant, he said he would not be anytime in the near future looking at possibly providing that sliver that Land Swap was looking at to sell it. I know it was something that was discussed at the last meeting that he may consider offering that to the town. But after consulting with his family and accountant, that he advised me that he would not be pursuing that.
So we already have a smaller plan in place that removes that sliver, and that's the one that's out to bid for curb and gutter.
John, have you heard anything on landscapers or the irrigation system?
I did get a visit from one of the three that I had solicited. They told me that they basically had it ready to go. But that you had indicated to them that they might want to hold off to see if the sliver comes back into play. I told them that the curb and gutter was moving forward with the revised plan without it, and that we should do the same for the irrigation and landscaping. So long and short, I know one of the three is essentially ready to submit. I will circle back with the other two and ask them to please have their quotes to us for the next council meeting.
Okay. Next up is the State of the Wyoming Workers' Comp Report.
I saw Bison State Electric come in and speak to John, but I'm not exactly sure about the quote yet, so it'll probably have to wait till the next meeting.
Okay. Did John have any other updates from Public Works on that?
On which one now?
On the workers' comp report?
No.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, on the workers' comp, is this the inspection that we did?
Mhm.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah, we're 25% done with of items that are complete. We have, he's out for pricing on some of the other items where we need to modify tools. And then he's contacted a couple vendors, one guy that possibly come in and update all of our first aid kits and all of that. And then, like she said, are you still waiting for the quote? I wasn't paying attention there. He said he's waiting for that second quote on him, but he did take those two guys through and toured all the buildings so that he could get those quotes.
Okay. Okay. Moving on to Valley Village Daycare. So I have a meeting tomorrow with Ellie Dana. She had some more questions. I believe they did an inspection of the clinic building on Monday, I believe. And I think that brought up some more questions, so I'm meeting with her tomorrow to try to answer those. I know we've gotten some of the questions regarding the insurance kind of resolved, and I believe those were submitted to Ellie, that our liability coverage wouldn't, or that I don't believe we can extend that to them, that the LGLP wouldn't do that, but the exterior of the building, the insurance would be covered, or could be covered by the town, but inside they'd have to have a.
You could continue to use the property coverage that you have through WARM for the building for things like hail and wind, but the renter would have to have a CGL policy, a general liability policy, with some certain requirements in that. But yeah, that would be something they'd have to get themselves. The only thing that we could provide is the property damage coverage that you've already got on it.
Okay. Like I said, I'll keep the council up to date after I speak with Ellie there. Moving on to the invoice cloud.
So we have been speaking to Casell on a better program to, I guess, a better credit card program to interface with Casell seamlessly, so that it would cut down all the time that we input all of the credit card information and ACHs that come in. We are still in negotiations with them to get the price down, but at the end of the very large packet that I put in your folder, there is a quote. So I will update you at the next meeting, but this is just some information so you can look over.
Well, I think it'd be helpful because we'll cut down on the mistakes to interface because it's manual interface right now. So I would cut down on human error.
Mm-hmm. And what's nice about this too is instead of people calling in and us taking the call and taking a credit card over the phone, they can call a line and it'll automatically put in their payment and push it through to Casell. And that way it also reduces security issues too.
Okay. Next up is the Pitney Bowes postage.
We'd like to put $1,000 in the postage machine.
Do you have that in your budget? Yes. I make a motion to put $1,000 on the postage machine.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Last up under town hall is the council vacancy. Did we receive any other letters of interest to fill
We did not.
vacancy? So I spoke with Gwen Bartlett in county clerk's office and asked her of the kind of the procedure or whatnot. And also asked Jane and Patrick to look into it as well. Jane, can you speak to the process to fulfilling that?
Sure. Under the statutes, if there's a vacancy on the council, the governing body can appoint someone to serve in that position until the successor is elected at the next general election, which would be this one coming up this fall. The statute doesn't have any specific procedures or timelines that you must follow to make that appointment. And similarly, town code does not have any timelines or requirements for you making that appointment. Something to consider down the road would be to maybe pass an ordinance about how you fill the vacancy and when. Other municipalities have those. We looked at Laramie and Cheyenne, for example. But whoever is appointed to fill the vacancy will only serve until the end of the year, which is when someone elected this fall would then start serving in January. There's two vacancies essentially with the empty council seat. There's a vacancy on the council that you can fill, or you can wait, or you can extend the period for people to apply and submit an interest statement. Another statute also provides that ordinarily a candidate would need to be nominated in the municipal primary election so that they could run and fill that seat in January, because this replacement person will only serve until the end of the year. The primary is today, so obviously you can't have someone run in the primary, but the statute contemplates that scenario when there's not somebody in the primary that needs to run for the seat. And I provided you a much more in-depth memo about how this works, but what the council would need to do if they wanted to nominate someone for the vacancy on the general election ballot, you can do that. You would need to make that nomination no later than 60 days before the general election. The general election's on November 8th. So a nomination to fill the vacancy on the ballot would have to be made by September 9th. Now, you can appoint someone to fill the position through the end of the year and fill the council vacancy. And you can also appoint someone to have the nomination on the general ballot. So that could be the same person. You could fill one of the spots, or you could fill neither and let the new council address this. I think it probably makes sense to at least fill the nomination on the ballot. And like I said, that would have to be done by September 9th. And then you could decide whether to solicit more interest or extend the time for people to submit interest in the council position to serve through the end of the year. Or you could take the person who's interested and nominate them to be on the ballot. You can also, if you have one empty spot on the ballot, you can nominate two people to run for that position. That's all within the discretion of the council. And again, you don't have to fill it. It's probably wise to put somebody on the ballot, but you certainly don't have to. And then you did send a sample ballot to Patrick yesterday or earlier this week. If you nominate someone for this vacancy on the ballot, that 2-year position, you would have to amend it to say that there's two spots, there's two positions open for that 2-year period. So it wouldn't be adding another name to the one spot. You'd be adding a name and a spot on the council. So that's a real high level abbreviated version of what you need to do.
So if I understand, you're saying that we can nominate someone for the 4-year and then someone for the 2-year?
No, it would just be the 2-year that you would be
So
nominating someone.
Okay.
So there's already a 2-year open. And then you would add to that a name, and you would add to that another spot, another position. So that the sample ballot that you sent me would have to be amended to show that there's 2 vacancies on the 2-year. None of the other positions would be affected. And so it's just important to understand that there's really two vacancies for 1 spot, if that makes sense. There's the vacancy on the council that you can fill now, and that person will serve through the end of the year. And then you can also nominate someone to be on the general election ballot who would run for 2 years, and they would take office in January.
So I guess my feeling would be to ask Kathy what she would like to do. But she's not here tonight, so.
No, she had a meeting tonight and so she wasn't able to make it. I did talk to her this afternoon. And I told her that the council wasn't quite clear on the process. The last 2 times there's been an open seat, it's been after the general election, I believe. And that the council was at that point appointing someone to fill those spots for the remainder of those 2 years. So that was, when I spoke with Jane Patrick, new information, I guess, if you will, where there is a general election that's yet to come. And so when I spoke to her this afternoon, she said, she'd love to serve, and her understanding was that if we were going to move forward with appointing her to the council, that there would be a motion that would have to pass tonight and that she would be here at the next council meeting to be sworn in, to be on the council. I did tell her the council was not quite clear on the process moving forward if that appointment to the council only extended through the end of this year, and that the council might have some questions for Jane about that tonight. So I think we could move forward. It sounded like she was interested in moving forward, and joining the council if that was the council's prerogative. And like I said, we can discuss it with her too, if she'd like to be added to the general ballot or if anyone else had interest. If we have to give notice by September 9th, our next council meeting is September 6th, and we could make that decision on giving notice to put onto the general election at that point. So.
Creed, you said you spoke with Gwen today. Was that also discussed with her? I mean, it's just.
Yeah, when I spoke with Gwen was kind of the opinion, and she said, when these issues arise, that she stipulates it by saying, you need to consult your town attorney. She was under the impression that, given our situation, that if we appointed someone to the council seat to fill that vacancy, that they would sit in that seat and for the remainder of that term. So it'd be 2 years and 4 months.
That's been consistent with my conversations with her in the past, not about Ben's seat, but obviously this is not the first time we've had this situation in front of us over the last, 2.5 years. So
Yeah,
she had indicated that they would fill the remainder of the full term of that seat, correct?
yes, and her understanding of the statutes was that the notice or the vacancy nomination, and I think where it's been applied and where she's had to deal with it in the past has been someone goes through the primaries. Like right now today was the primaries. That person, whether they fall ill, have a change of mind, death, whatever, that through the primary processes, that is how the nomination is formed to go to the general election. And if for whatever reason that person is unable to continue in the general election, then the municipality would put in a vacancy of that nomination, whether it's 1 or 2 people. Like I said, she hasn't seen it in this instance, but said that, if that's what the statutes read, she'd be more than happy to talk to the town attorneys to get clarification on that, to proceed with how the statutes read, but that was not her understanding of the statute.
Jane, any follow-up thoughts on that? I mean, I appreciate the due diligence that you and Patrick have done on this, and I'm just trying to square the two.
I'd be happy to talk to Gwen and or the county attorney. What we are looking at is 15-1-107C that says if a vacancy is determined to exist, the governing body shall appoint an eligible person to the office who shall serve until his successor is elected at the next general municipal election. So we were thinking the next general election is the one coming up. So there may be some discussion there, but I'm happy to talk to her, make sure we do it the right way.
Yeah, agreed on the statute language, certainly. It was just in the past circumstances, in talking to our county officials, my understanding was because the situation had arose after the filing period and after the primary election, that precluded that seat from being filled through that process. And so the next general election where they could be added to a ballot would then be 2024. Now, if you've got information that we can petition to have somebody nominated and added that would essentially get whisked through the primary and appear on the general, I was certainly not aware of that process.
Yeah, and John, I think for that proposition, we're looking at 22-23-308, where it contemplates if there was nobody who ran in the primary for whatever reason, or if the person who won the primary died or moved or whatever, then this 22-23-308 looks like to us that the council can nominate someone to be on the general ballot 60 days prior to the general election.
Okay.
But I think it would be wise to just chat with Gwen about that before you make any moves, and you have time before you have to do that anyway, so.
Well, do you think it's fair to say that we can have this all sorted out by the next council meeting, and that way we're not stringing Kathy along, and we can make a decision and she can be in the room as well, and we can talk about what she wants?
My end, yes.
Yeah, council, what do you guys think? Is that fair?
Yes.
Yeah, and I think, or I guess my thought would be, it would be good to have her input. You know, if her idea was that she was gonna be appointed for the next 2.5 years, you know, she might not have interest in serving for the next 4 months. And maybe she doesn't have interest in being a part of the general election process. So I think it's fair to, you know, maybe invite her to the next meeting. And we can address the vacancy in the council right now and get her input on, you know, how she would like to proceed if it was that, you know, you'd have to go to the general election, you know, to fill one of those two-year terms. You know, that might not be something that she's willing or wanting to do, or maybe she is. I don't know. So I think it'd be prudent to, you know, maybe push this, you know, to our next council meeting and invite her in and get her input.
I would agree. I would like Kathy's input.
Okay, so is there a motion just to table this until the next council meeting?
Motion to table.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, anything else for town hall, Marie?
No.
Okay, moving on to police department.
The first one's a 2020 SHSP grant extension. And I just got this from our expert came in here. But all it is, I need to get signatures on that so we can send it in to extend that grant so we can draw that last $10,000 out of it.
Okay. Is there a motion to sign the 2020 SHSP grant extension?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The second one is Officer Kasner has just completed all his training to move on to the advanced law enforcement certification, which normally comes along with $1 an hour pay raise on that. I'm trying to get the council's approval to see if we can bump him up on that.
And his advanced training, is that a years served?
Yeah, it goes along with years served, and he's got to stay on top of his training, his firearms. There's other stuff that he does to get up there. I got a dispatcher that's going to be coming up. She's finishing up her advanced training too in the next couple of months as well. Actually, Officer Kasner's up doing another class right now. He's up at the WLE or up in Casper doing the desert snow class for interdiction right now.
What is the effective date of this?
It was, we received that like on, say the 24th July is when I got the email from Post.
I make a motion to give the $1 hour pay raise increase for the advanced law enforcement certification, starting at the next pay period.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Just discussion. The reason why would we not give it to him from the time he got the lap? Just asking the question. Would it be the next pay period, or would it be from the time he got the certificate?
Well, normally when we approve this, that's what we do. They'll council in the past has just moved it to the next pay period, even though it was.
All right.
So that's kind of been the standard.
All right. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Okay, the next one is we got 2 part-timers and then our new officer that need to get new bulletproof vests. We've submitted the grant application, which the grant, we haven't got actual confirmation yet that we've been accepted, but in the past, it's from, it's historically, they've always done that because of the importance of these vests. Basically, what I just need is permission to order these, and then once we get this receipt, we send it back into for the grant. It's a 50% match, so we pay half of the $3,993. It's when we mail it back in. The 3 vests we need to replace are all 6 years old. Then they're way past their expiration, and hoping to get Martin Peterson, a new officer, get his sometime done before he does his firearms training at the academy, which he is leaving on the 29th of this month.
Where was this budgeted?
Capital equipment.
Are you sure? I'm just pulling up the budget that was passed in capital equipment. We had budgeted $118,500, 2,000 for switches, 85,000 for Spillman and Digiticket, 31,500 for repeaters. It's the notes I have from our workshop.
I'd have to go back and look. There used to be a line item for bulletproof vest grant, but I don't have it with me, but I thought all that got moved into capital equipment instead of having that separate.
I mean, I hate to be making an argument against bulletproof vests. it's not really an argument against bulletproof vests. It's an argument for having to budget for the things that we're going to need throughout the year.
Looking at the budget, like I said, I'm trying to remember from our budget workshops, I know that there was some officer safety stuff that was kind of wish list stuff, and I don't remember if this is on there or not. Looking at the budget under the PD, we did make a substantial increase under supplies. And without looking at the year numbers, I don't know where we ended up on that. You know, we were projected to be roughly $900 under where we ended up setting that budget number. So I don't know if that's something that could absorb that cost. Just looking at the numbers we finished off with there on the budget. There might be, very well could be some room in there to maybe absorb the cost there. I don't know. But I have the same notes under capital equipment that John did, was the $2,000 for the switches, the $85,000 for the Spillman and Digiticket, and then the $31,500 for the repeaters. So I also think officer safety is very important.
I do too. I would make a motion to table until we can find the line item that would cover the $2,000 expense to the town.
And there's motions for a second.
I'll second it.
All those in favor of tabling?
Aye.
I'll try to do some digging on that as well, see if I can come up with, see where we can.
I think that needs to be a priority, chief, and make sure we have it by next week so we can.
Okay.
Okay, anything else, chief?
No, I think I covered all of it. I said that, Martin's been, the new officer, Mark Peterson's been doing FTO with myself, Sergeant Christian, and Officer Moore. He seems to be moving along pretty good. And I said I was able to push his start date to the academy for August 29th, so he'll be leaving then. And it'll be about November 13th, I think he'll be back. But that's it. Officer Kasner's up doing an introduction class in Casper right now. He'll be gone till the end of the week. And he's been creating some pretty good numbers on his traffic citations, as well as some somewhat irate people. But I mean, it's good to see the numbers up and they're out there working good. So that's all I got.
Okay. Thanks, chief. Okay, moving on to the fire department, not a whole lot here to report. In the train, every Wednesday. At the end of this month, I believe it is, we have a company coming in to do our hose testing. So we'll have that done for our ISO stuff. And then I believe in September, we have a company coming in to do the pump testing on our trucks. So we should have that completed, I think that second week of September. Other than that, I don't have anything else for the fire department. Moving on to rec department.
I'll start with our action item. I have an open gym supervisor who has been working with us since November of this last year. With Jordan's leaving to go to college, Amelia becomes the lead gym supervisor. So in front of you, I have a personal action form to give her a $1 increase in hourly wage. Her wage is covered by the Carbon County School District #2 Recreation Board grant. That grant covers up to $10 per hour for each one of our open gym supervisors. I believe I gave you guys a copy of the personal action form, but Amelia, she's outstanding. She covers anything she can. She gets called in a lot to help out with just Any other open gym, she comes in on Saturdays some. If people want to organize an open gym, she'll come in and open the gym for them. All the other open gym supervisors look to her for support and assistance, and she offers it gracefully. So with that, I would just like to request that she gets $1 an hour per hour raise, sorry.
Make a motion to take Amelia to $10 per hour as covered by the grant of CCSD 2.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The community gym, we have not changed our hours of operation. Middle school volleyball will start practice full-time as of August 22nd. So we will continue to have our evening open gym from 6 to 8:30. At the gym also, Harlan County Dance, or County Six Dance, I guess, has changed their schedule to all of the school district schedules. So they will have dance classes on Friday when there's no school and Saturdays when there is school on Fridays. So our gym is no longer closed on Wednesdays. At the pool, I have a schedule in front of you and a tentative schedule for the remainder of the season. I lose my last lifeguard and clerk Friday, the 19th. So we will be going to an abbreviated schedule. The school has contacted me and would like to do a pool party for the 1st through 5th graders on August 24th through 25th. And pending the completion of Cindy Carnes training, we will be open to be able to do that. Our last day for public swim will be Saturday, September 3rd, and the last day that we're scheduled to have the pool open is September 9th. Youth activities, we have flag football starting in September. The baseball fields, are they under the town, or do I need to request permission from someone else to use the baseball fields for flag football?
Remind me and I'll get with the family.
Okay.
And, I can't see them having any issues with it. They're all about having kids out there, so.
Okay,
Remind me and I'll get her and double check.
sounds good. And soccer ended this last week. We had a great turnout. And now we're just going to focus our youth activities to flag football. Our next Recreation Commission Board meeting will be Monday, September 12th at 6 o'clock, Town Hall.
Okay, next up is, the baseball field. Okay.
Evening, Mayor and Council. Kind of give you an update and then possibly talk to you guys about some financial stuff. So currently the Little League is continuing to work on their baseball fields on that north field. We have getting ready to demo the building over there that was used for the equipment room / concession stand. I guess one of the questions I have is, are we required to obtain a demo permit to tear down that building? I spoke with Brian Drake. He's willing to demo it, but want to make sure we're following the guidelines of doing things properly and right. So just need to make sure we have something in place when that demo needs to happen. Secondly, we're making some more improvements to the fields. We have fence that's been ordered. The fence has come out to around just under $8,200. I'm asking tonight if the town would be willing to maybe split the cost 50-50 with us to get the fence. The reason why I bring that up is we have raised a lot of money. A lot of that money has been put back into those fields. And this would help offset some of that cost so that we can continue making improvements to those fields, such as an extension on the equipment room. We are doing a 16-by-20 addition, which I understand we'll have to get a permit for that to build. But some of that cost we would like to pour back into that building. So just coming here tonight to ask for it. The fence is going to be delivered on Thursday. I just received a text for it. They're going to be delivering it with the airport materials for their fence. So we will have fence here Thursday. We'll get it picked up and set aside down at the baseball fields for perimeter. So
How much were you looking for?
if we can, I'd like to do half, which would be right around $4,050 or so. I know we have, from talking in the past, we have set some money aside for baseball field improvements. I don't want to deplete everything. But if we can at least cut some of the meat a little bit so that we can continue to work on our improvements.
Did we, sorry, go ahead. Did we do anything with that community gas grant? I remember we had received that and split it between Never Forget Park and ball fields, but I don't remember if we ever actually spent that or appropriated to a particular improvement. Is that an opportunity here?
Yeah, I don't recall telling you we ever did. I know I believe with that, didn't we set 50% of that aside for the ball fields and another 50 to go to Never Forget Park?
Yep.
So, but I don't know that was ever utilized, and I don't remember the number right off the top of my head. I was thinking it was $5,500.
Yeah, we'd have to ask Georgia if she allocated it.
So, and I believe we also budgeted 10 grand to go to the baseball fields this year. So where I put the budget. Under baseball field improvements, we budgeted 10 grand there. So I think we don't charge money budgeted to do that.
I'm just looking in the revenue side. We had 5,000 for Wyoming Community Gas contribution for fiscal year 23. It sounds like you were looking at the expenditure side under parks.
Yes.
Do we have any other costs to hit from the irrigation system that's kind of already committed?
Irrigation system should already been.
It's completed and paid. I think the last little bit is just the wiring to turn the system on, and that won't be done until we get the building completed, because we'll run everything into a breaker inside the equipment room.
Okay, so we just have to keep in mind that there might be a straggler invoice for some of that work that'll come in when that's complete. Yeah.
Yes. Well, I don't know. If I remember right, the cost of the installation of that included. I can't remember.
Right, and I believe it was around 22,000, and I believe the Little League paid 11,000 of that, and the town paid 11,000 of that. And if I remember, that was on last year's budget item.
Okay, that's just what I'm trying to figure out. Is that already settled and not going to hit at all this year?
There, to my knowledge, there shouldn't be, John.
Okay.
I would think if there was a minor cost like that came up, the Little League could probably cover that.
Yep.
Well, my notes from the budget workshop, Creed, you're probably looking at the same thing, is that with the 10 grand we allocated was specifically for fence and dugout. So.
Yep.
So I make a motion that the town give the cost and the fencing with the Little League. I guess she'll give us the exact amount or.
I did email Creed a invoice that came from Michael's Fence that's supplying it. And he has the exact number to that.
Yeah, it's $8,182.51.
So have that roughly 4,000-ish.
Yeah, It's $4,091.25, so call it 4,100 even.
So I make a motion that the town contribute $4,100 to the fence improvement at the Little League Park.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and then I guess the other question is on the demo permit. And I have not had time to look into ordinances. I believe under the building permit, there's a deal for wrecking. And I don't know if there's a cost associated with that. I believe Brian's donating his time and equipment to tear that down.
Yeah, so Brian's gonna be doing some trench work for that power line that's gonna be running from the pole to the building. And he offered, since he was there, he'd be willing to tear down the building for us. And I'm assuming under the demos, again, with using the equipment to demo it versus somebody coming in with a hammer and tearing it down. So I just want to make sure we're covered on that end.
Agreed, I have to finish that building permit tomorrow. Why don't I do the homework? I'll call Ben, and if there are permits needed, he can come down and we get squared up.
Okay.
Perfect. All right, thanks.
Thanks, Ben. D-Ron, anything else under rec? Yeah.
Not that I can think of.
Okay. Moving on to Department of Public Works.
Okay, first thing under streets, we're looking for permission to order 2 loads of ice melt. A little history on that. One of the last meetings during the winter months, we were running low, and we gave John permission to buy additional ice melt if needed, and that was not purchased. So we're down to probably about a quarter of a bin out there. The ice melt price is going up right now. It's gone, we budgeted for $4,200 a load, and it's already gone up to $4,500 a load. And expecting to get even higher before winter. So we have the room for it. So John would like permission to order 2 loads of ice melt at $4,500 each. So I would like to make a motion to approve John's purchase of 2 loads of ice melt for a total of $9,000.
Second one's discussion. Where is the absorbed hike gonna be in the budget?
But that's a good question. With inflation and everything and all the prices going up, I think we're going to have some issues in the following year. But I will get with John and look and see if well, I'm not sure where we have fat in the budget or if we have any fat in the budget, but right now the budget is a total amount for the year.
Which was,
But it was based on a projected cost of $4,200 a load. So there is budget to buy the ice melt and cover the cost of it now. But the question is,
if you need more.
will we run out during the winter? So if we have a banana belt winter, then we shouldn't need any more. It's kind of it's going to be a problem, or it has the potential to be.
So right now it's covered, the 9,000.
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Second order of business is John Lake permission to order 2 pallets of hole patch for the streets. The vendor's given us actually $300 off on that load. So the total cost is $1,495 instead of the $1,700 it normally is.
Is that budgeted?
Yes.
Yes.
Hey, Ron, on that, has there been any further activity on trying to, go after a hot mix project, rather than continue to throw? I know we're going to need some cold patch. I know we're still going to need some, but rather than, spending that kind of money on cold patch to actually start tackling some of these streets, in their entirety?
Yeah, John, as far as activity, we have, based on the old, plan, there are some streets that, have been on the agenda for, possibly repaving, but, I think the answer is no, we haven't, really pursued it recently.
Well, and if I remember right, John, correct me if I'm wrong, did at the last council meeting, John Winters was gonna look into a priority on which streets.
Yeah.
And we were gonna try to look and see if we could get some work maybe done this fall while there was cruising town.
Yeah, so he may have worked on that. He was sick, he's been sick for the last day or so, so I'm not sure what the status of that is.
Okay.
Yeah, it was either the last meeting or maybe going back into July. I don't remember. But yeah, I think that's, if there's some economy of scale that we can, achieve by doing it while there's asphalt being run through town, that'd be awesome.
Yep, I agree. So anyway, I'd like to make a motion to give the Public Works Department permission to order the 2 pallets of hole patch for a total price of $14.95.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ron, would you follow up on with John Winters on that to see on this?
I will. On the streets, yes, I will. And then, John, for the water and sewer, Jacob Hubbs turned in his notice. His last day will be August 24th. And John's putting together an advertisement for the paper. Puts the water and sewer group down to 2 people. The last couple of weeks, they've been installing taps. They've installed 2 taps on West Elm that were extremely deep, and it consumed quite a bit of the department's time for that. They've continued to adjust the PRVs that were recently installed. They finished 70 of them to date, and they have 3 or 4 more, and they'll be done adjusting the PRVs. On the hot pool, the state inspector for the Wyoming Department of Agriculture, they gave us a visit on August 9th. It was a good inspection, except for she quoted Chapter 3, Section 29 of their ordinances and under pool enclosures. And she says that all public pools shall be protected by an enclosure. And our main concern, even though there's walls around and a building, which would include be included as part of the enclosure, that there were no gates. And she's wanting gates installed at those openings. She did tell John that we have until August of 23 to get resolution on it. He did question her. I think this was her 5th inspection, and questioned why it's coming up now. And the answer was she said she just missed it. On the Never Forget Park, John advised the engineer to proceed with the new plans for the approval or for the revised layout. And one of the last thing when we were talking about the workman's comp thing, John did set up a new monthly inspection for our fire extinguishers. I forgot to mention that previously. So we now have a monthly inspection and a log and a new person assigned to take care of that. And that's pretty much it for the public works.
Okay, going back to the Never Forget Park, so WLC is supposed to be putting together the RFP for the curb and gutter.
Yes, well, it's the new design without the additional strip of property. I did not get a date. He was trying to get an update today when I stepped in on him. But the person he had on the phone did not have an update. For him. So I'll hope to have that by next meeting, and I'll advise the council if it comes sooner than that.
Okay. Also under, Public Works, I believe we have a gentleman here, regarding the campground.
Thank you. I'm William McDonald. I'm a homeowner in Lahoney, Colorado. I come up occasionally, and I was here a couple days ago, and I noticed that maybe I'd like to spend a month there again. And about a rate to I'm asking Mr. Mayor and the council to reinstate a monthly rate of $100 for the $10 flights. Some background info. I planted trees up in French Creek in 1984, and that was my initiation in Saratoga. And so I've seen the changes, and it was nice. I stayed here 2004, 2005 when I had a back injury, and so I paid $100, and I stayed for several months. And I think it's pretty easy to administer that. If you'd go in and pay someone at the city $100, and from the day it starts till that day in the next month, it's $100 to stay for a month, and you get to use the toilet and possibly what is it? What do they call them? Picnic bench. So, thank you for your time. That's my request. And for me, I'd like to do it in September. It's really a great opportunity. I think for the person, for me, it was really helpful, and that for the city, it's $100. Thank you.
So I guess the only concern I'd have there, or one of the concerns I'd have there, is with the game and fish coming in. I believe they're supposed to come in. Talked to John Winters about it. I believe their plan is to come in roughly on the 12th, and intent is to keep part of the campground open, but I don't know exactly which part, the upper part, as they're going through doing their treatment to the lake to kill off the fish. So I don't know if that'd be a concern there. If he's wanting to be in the whole month of September, that'd be something to consider, I guess.
So get John to talk to Game and Fish and
Yeah,
try and narrow that down.
they'd sent out a plan, and John had spoke with Bob Thompson, who's been kind of his contact point on that. And like I said, I know they were planning on closing off the lowest road, and then maybe the second road, but leaving the upper road in. But I'm not sure if that's where the $10 campsites are, or I'm just not familiar with it. So,
I'll talk to John on that when he's back.
okay. And Ray, do you have contact information for Mr. McConnell?
I don't, but we know where to find him.
Okay. Okay, council have any opinion on allowing a monthly fee for someone to stay there? Or is that something where it should be at the discretion of the public works director, or what's council's?
I don't have a problem with a monthly fee, but in my opinion, a lot of places do that where they have a daily and a weekly and a monthly. I know we've had a lot of people out there that have spent this entire summer out there camped out, so it doesn't seem like it hurts the fishing or the property at all, so that's my take on it.
There is two different rates, $10 a day for non-electric and $15 a day for electric.
But no weekly or monthly rate set.
Correct.
I'd concur with Ron in that I don't think having a longer term rate causes a problem. I don't think we've experienced that. I would just point out that not having water and sewer, or call it full hookups out there, probably doesn't really lend itself to being a long-term camping situation very well. That's certainly not to say that you can't go to the lagoons and dump or fill up with water and take it back out there. In my mind, it would be kind of a no-brainer if there were full hookups and it was really meant to support a long duration stay. In its current state, I just don't know that it is.
There was a lady from Germany camped out there last summer. She was there quite a while, and the nice part about Saratoga is she camped out there and she would shower at the hot pool, and the town, although the amenities are miles apart, the town had everything she needed to stay comfortably out there. So
I will say for town hall, it is sometimes difficult for us to figure out where people are and where their payment is in association to where they're staying, because it's not labeled very well out there.
that's probably good.
Okay, so does anyone have an issue with Mr. McDonald paying a monthly fee?
I don't have an issue.
John?
No, like I said, I don't think it's a problem.
Might this be something that we talk to John Winters about,
Yeah.
creating a weekly or monthly fee schedule?
And I think it kind of goes along with what Marie just said. If we number the spots out there better, they can pay the monthly fee for a specific spot, so we can kind of keep track of it.
Okay. Okay, did you get with John Winters about that? Okay. Moving on to reports from boards and commissions. If there's anything for the community center joint powers board, their next meeting is September 12th, at 4:30 at the community center. Water and sewer joint powers board.
I did attend the meeting last Wednesday. I think the only item of business I would update the council on is that the bylaws for the board were on the agenda. Chairman wasn't able to get those out for everybody's review ahead of the meeting, so it was tabled, but I would expect that to be back on the agenda at the next meeting. And I'll be watching for those bylaws to be voted on when they come out. There's discussion about the Spring Street project. There's discussion about updates to ordinances, not really any progress there to report. Our next meeting will be September 14th, 6 p.m. PVCC.
Okay. To go off that just a little bit, Ron and I sat in on a meeting today with Lewis and T.O. Just kind of give an update on where the Spring Ave Water Project is. They're currently working on the intersection down there by the school. Dewatering's been an issue, so they are a little behind schedule. I think it was a consensus today. But they're hoping to start making progress and try to get out of that intersection in that area as fast as they can. They did have a couple questions for T.O. regarding, what was it, Ron? Flow filling or?
Yeah, using flow fill and Lewis leaves at the crossings, John, where we're crossing one utility with another.
So they were gonna get back with Josh, from T.O. To get some clarification there. This is an update to the water along, Spring Ave from River to, the school will be turned off tomorrow. I think from 9 to 3, I did see them out, hanging hanging flyers on all the businesses and residents, so, that's kind of where they are there, so. Unless you have anything else to add from the meeting.
No, that about covers it. There was some discussion about pay apps and change orders, and basically we asked PO to go back and read the contract and make sure that all the paperwork was in alignment with the contract. That was about it.
Okay, and one of the things that was brought up today was on the design of the project. The fire hydrant on the northwest corner there of that intersection was not included in the design. And so they were gonna look at what the cost would be to do one more fire hydrant. I think they had 3 on the project. And they were gonna look at that. John Lasko was at the meeting because John Winters was gone sick. And he was gonna look to see if we did have a fire extinguisher in stock.
Fire hydrant.
Or a fire hydrant, I mean, in stock. So that might be something we might see a change order coming down the road for that. So, okay.
As we're talking about change orders, has there been a discussion about change orders going the other way on this dewatering that we're not seeing happening? I'm just curious if that was brought up at all or discussed.
Not at the meeting today, no.
Okay.
So, moving on to planning commission, first up is the lot on Hickory and First. Ron, have you had any further discussion with the landowner there?
I called him immediately after last week's meeting, and he had already hired a contractor the previous Monday. But that contractor is having manpower issues right now, and so he's working with him, trying to get him over there to finish it, but he's already engaged a contractor to go over and clean up that site. And he had done that before the last meeting. So since then, we issued the notice on the last meeting, and then I haven't heard a response back from him since the notice, but his intentions were and still are to clean the lot up as soon as that contractor can resolve their manpower issues.
Okay. And that notice did go out at the end of the last week. Took me a little while to go through and try to figure out proper or what all needed to be involved in that letter. The one thing that wasn't in that letter, and I did call the landowner, was one of Joe Dell's complaints about the campaign signs. I did call him and leave him a message yesterday because that was not included in the nuisance notice. But I've not heard back from him either on that. So I'll try to follow up with him tomorrow and see if I can get a hold of him.
Hey, Craig, per that letter, how many days was stipulated in that letter that they had?
30.
Was it 30?
So I believe ordinance reads that they have 10 days to respond and 30 days to abate, if I recall correctly.
Okay. Thank you.
So, okay. And then next up under planning and zoning is a Saratoga Resort sign variance. This is something that has been in front of the planning commission for some time. If you recall, the resort started the variance process, I believe in February. And then opted to forego that process. They did put a sign up. And then they did start the variance process. They have had their 2 public hearings before the planning commission on the request for variance, at the public hearing, at the request for variance, and Sheena from the resort and Mr. Harding, the resort's attorney, was both at that meeting. Some of the public input at that public hearing felt that the resort needed to take the sign down until the variance was completed, that our ordinances don't allow for signs of that size and where it was mounted on the rooftop. And at that meeting, the planning commission didn't take any action to require them to remove the sign, but they did on their own volition later that week, I believe. At our last planning and zoning meeting, their application for variance was up. There was a public hearing. There was no comments at the public hearing, either in favor or against the variance. In your council packets, you'll have the application for variance, and I think maybe the best thing to do before we go there is to give Sheena or Mr. Harding an opportunity to speak before we start going through the findings of fact for regarding the variance.
Good evening, Mayor James, members of the council. As just introduced by Mayor James, I'm Alan Harding. I'm the resort attorney. I got involved regarding this base camp sign about a month after it originally was applied for the variance, and then that kind of went sideways. I inserted myself with Mayor James. That's when I became involved. Run through my notes here because Mayor James jumped the shark on some of the things I was going to say already. But specifically, it's a variance application for the base camp sign, which is just there at 602 East Pick Pike Road, right across from the brewery in the main building at the resort. It's a request for a variance of 1863010, which prohibits rooftop signs generally in Saratoga, as well as 1863040, which limits the size of an advertising sign to 120 square feet within the retail business district. Just so, and you may or may not have this in your documentation, but the sign for the base camp is 200 square feet. So it's 80 feet square greater than the traditional limit. As Mayor James said, at the initial hearing before the application was up, there was two main issues that were commented on. Number one was the lighting that was originally on the sign. And it was clarified that that is not part of the variance application. The lighting has been removed, and if the variance were to be approved, that is not part of what the resort is asking for. The other one was the fact that the sign was still up. And that comment was taken very seriously by the resort because the public is not privy to the conversations that I have had with city officials or the city attorney or anyone else for that matter. When I inserted myself and became involved, that was discussed, and our understanding as a resort is it could be up because we're going through the variance process. It became pretty clear at that first hearing that the public didn't know that, and it didn't look good for the public. We took it down straight away. It was down that Friday. And those are the two big issues. There was some comment regarding the signs, but as I recall, I don't remember an objection to that. At the second hearing, there were no public comments. There was some discussion by the committee. There's some speculation whether members of the public outside the 300-foot radius would have an opinion regarding the sign. As far as within the 300-foot radius, all but one of the neighbors are approve of the sign application. But Councilman Nelson, who was present at that hearing, did comment that that's something that the committee could consider. So that was discussed. But there was no evidence during the public hearing presented that the sign was against the public interest or any other objection by the public. Committee member Burrow did raise a question about whether a 200 square foot sign could create some sort of precedent. That was a discussion amongst the committee. I would note for the council that in 2018, the resort went through a variance process for its sign just across the bridge, and that was actually 234 square feet. So it's actually larger than what the base camp sign would be. But ultimately, the committee did vote against recommending the variance application for approval to the city council. As of 3-2 vote, 2 committee members were absent. And so now the resort is before the town council to continue to request approval, notwithstanding the planning committee's lack of a recommendation. And the reason that is because according to 1872-010, approval or denial of a variance is up to the governing body, which is the town council. And Mayor James, if you'd like, I had planned to just talk through the factors as from the resort standpoint. That's
Yeah, sure, that's fine. I think just to add a little bit to the discussion, like Mr. Harding said, one of the members of the commission, was concerned about setting a precedent for allowing signs over 200 foot. And what that precedent might be for the town. Really, like I said, their variance application focuses on 2 things. One, the size of the sign is too large for ordinance, and the second one is that it's on a rooftop. When the planning commission voted, there was motion made to approve or to recommend that the council approve the variance, and that motion was denied 3-2, as Mr. Harding stated. At the commission or at the meeting, there was no discussion of why they wanted to not make the recommendation to the council. One of the questions was, well, it is up on a rooftop. One of the concerns I have with that is, and I voiced it at the planning commission meeting, is, are we setting a precedent that if the neighbors are in favor and approve of it, is the planning commission and now the council looking at those issues and setting the precedent that it doesn't matter what the neighbors say. One of the issues that was brought up at the commission level was, well, that's only asking the people within 300 foot, and that this affects more people than that. And I think that's the purpose of having that public hearing. Like I said, the ordinance is what it says, it's 300 foot, and that's the perimeter or the boundary that is required for them to go forward with the variance. So.
Can I speak to that a little bit, Creed, because they are right next door neighbor. So with the comments on the rooftop signs, there are other rooftop signs in Saratoga. So as far as starting that precedent, bird's already flown. If you look at the location of the sign and the size of the sign, it sits clear back on the backside of a parking lot. And I think if they're going to attract people to that business, they need to do something substantial to do that. And the only business or the only neighbors that the sign even faces is themselves. They're the only ones that get to look at the sign every day. In fact, when he put it up the first time, I drove by it for a week. It wasn't until you were taking it down that I noticed that the sign was up. So I don't think, as far as the traveling public, it's a big distraction and everything. I think we're making a lot of it. And then the final thing I would add is the Saratoga Inn is a huge draw to the community as far as the destination. I think the community gets a lot of benefit from having it there, and that coming out of the age of COVID, I think anything we can do for our local businesses that helps them get back on their feet and promotes their business and promotes the valley, I think is a good thing. And so being within that 300 feet limit, I don't have a problem with the Saratoga Inn having a sign that draws people into their business. So that's my only comment on it.
Okay.
And I heard pros and cons. Now that I know that the lighting is not there, that was the con from people up on the hill. I've had people drive by it every day and say that it looks really good and it's modern and this is just a variance, one-time variance. So my thought would be the neighbors, I think we're only one disapproved in the area. And if it needs to be changed, we need to change the ordinances.
Well, and to that point, that was part of the package that was submitted by Mr. Harding was different language regarding signage. And the planning commission has discussed it briefly, I think, at the last two commission meetings, along with other proposed amendments to ordinances. But hasn't really jumped in yet. Like I said, the commission's had a lot on their plate. We've had the last couple of meetings that ran at least a couple hours, I'll call, right?
Yeah.
2 to 3 hours. So the planning commission, I don't think has necessarily looked at just saying, no, we don't like what is there necessarily. There was some issues on some of the proposed language that Mr. Harding submitted, but I think until things slow a little bit down a little bit there, that the commission won't really engage on moving forward or not moving forward with proposed changes there.
Do you have any thoughts, John?
Yeah, I do. Thanks for giving me an opportunity. I've been at several of the planning commission meetings over the last several months where this topic has been discussed, and maybe I've been at different meetings. To characterize the attendance at those meetings as not any public input, I think is a gross mischaracterization of what I saw there. There were absolutely people who took time out of their evening to come to those meetings. People who do not live within 300 feet, who are not surveyed by the petition, to express opposition to the sign. I can name names if that's helpful for the council members, but I can assure you that there were a number of people in attendance there who weren't pleased with the sign or the sign variance, not supportive of it. I would express my personal opinion at this time, take the opportunity to do that. I would like to go on record and state that I think the sign is obnoxious and distasteful, and that a sign of that size and character doesn't belong in Saratoga. On a rooftop of that size, there's a reason that the code limits the square footage to 120 square feet. It was discussed by Planning Commission that a comparison of a number of the signs throughout town, retail business, highway business, and there was discussion about what 120 square feet looks like as compared to a number of other signs that exist in town. And my recollection is that there was several statements made that 200 square feet was above and beyond what was reasonable. Now, regardless of what was said at the Planning Commission meeting, I'd like to, I guess, remind the council what the code says when it comes to variances. Start out by saying that the purpose of any variance shall be to modify the strict application of the requirements where it can be shown that by reason of exceptional topography or other extraordinary or exceptional circumstances, the literal enforcement of the terms of the title will result in an unnecessary hardship to the extent that the property might be prohibited from being used in a manner similar to those other properties in the same district. That is 1872-010B under purpose and procedure for variances. So I'm really not sure what the hardship is here. There doesn't seem to me to be a hardship that would prohibit the resort from using that property in a manner where other properties in the same district could be used. There's no exceptional topography that requires the sign to be up on a roof to be seen or anything of that nature. Going on further into the code, Paragraph C, I guess 5 would be something to point out, that the variance will not alter the character of the district in which it was located. I think that if we were to approve this variance, it would absolutely alter the characteristic of the district.
So
I
John,
think here, let me read one more, please. Number 7, that the variance, if granted, is the minimum variance and the least modification that will afford the relief sought. So even if the resort had a hardship that they were requesting relief to meet, I don't understand how going from 120 square feet to 200 square feet on a rooftop is reasonable or in keeping with the variance. I also just want to say that I'm a little concerned and frustrated that, you know, the people that participated in the process throughout the planning commission meetings, I think they were all under the impression that it was dead last Tuesday. And in my experience, I'm not aware of any other variances that have died at planning commission and then come before the council. And I can't see who's in the room tonight. I can't see who's there. And if any of the faces that I would come to recognize at those planning commission meetings to be there to talk about the sign are in the room tonight. But I imagine they're not, because I imagine they were under the impression that this was dead a week ago. And so I'm concerned that by the council taking action tonight, and the positive action at that, being what I see coming as a 3-1 vote, that a whole bunch of people are going to feel very disenfranchised, and rightfully so. And I think that would be a mistake.
So John, what I was going to say is on items under C, items 1 through 8, I believe that's what Mr. Harding was going to walk through. I would say the public comments from the initial public hearing was, yes, there was a lot of concerns about the sign. There was a number of members in the public that were there at the application public hearing and at the commission hearing, or at the commission meeting, that voiced nothing in favor or against the sign. There was a number of people that were very vocal at that first meeting at the commission. And so to characterize it is that the public had a number, or was at the last hearing or at the last meeting that we just had, and was very vocal in disapproving of the sign. I think that's a mischaracterization. The comments that were vocalized at that meeting came from the commission level, not the public. And I think that's to me, where we can agree to disagree, but that there was the talks at the last meeting, there was no communication from the public that, no, we don't want this sign up.
Reed, seriously, you were in that meeting. Did you look out at everybody and did you not understand that a number of them were there in opposition to the sign, regardless of what was said or unsaid? Did you understand?
They didn't say it, John. They didn't say it. And that's the point. There was a number of issues at that commission meeting that were being addressed. There's two people that were here at that commission meeting. Well, 3, including Mr. Harding, and I can't remember if Chuck and Mike were there or not either. They were there for other issues that got up and left when those other issues were discussed. So to say that there was a number of the people there that were disapproving of the sign, but didn't vocalize it, they had a public hearing to vocalize that concern, and they didn't. And during the commission discussion of it, their disapproval of it was not vocalized either.
I guess my question then too would be, if we have a recommendation from the planning commission and we don't follow the recommendation, then why do we have a planning commission?
That's a valid point, and that's a concern I have as well. Much like the Joint Powers Board, when their recommendation was to wait on the Spring Ave project, or push it into 2023. Is that something that this council decides to do?
I think that was more a money issue. They thought that it was coming out of their funds.
Well, this is before we knew what the final dollar was. This is going back to December, January, February, when this council made it a point to try to get a project done this year, if it was at all feasible.
So are there 7 members of the commission? Is it full?
Yes,
And there were only 5 there?
yes.
I think that I would like to send it back to the planning commission and have all 7 of the members weigh in on this.
Am I able to add some comments from
Absolutely.
that meeting? Just to elaborate on some things that were said. Yes, this specific sign is 200 square foot, which is only 80 square foot greater than the maximum total signage allowed for any single property in retail business. But that does not include the other 300 square feet of signage that the resort is currently using. So that would take them up to a total of 500 square foot of signage, which felt excessive to us as a planning commission. For reference, the community center sign is 66 square foot, which seems like a very large sign and has a very large presence on Main Street. Even in the verbiage that Mr. Harding suggested to us for new sign ordinances, he said that the maximum square foot of a larger business per signage should be 450 square feet. So they would still be far exceeding that. Councilman Hutchins made a few points that we want to do what's best for the businesses to attract business to the resort. I don't know if anyone has noted that the resort doesn't even have a sign at the resort property saying this is the resort. So if they're concerned about attracting business, it seems like they should advertise their main business first before putting up a 200 square foot sign that advertises a support supplementary building that is supposed to cater to the needs of their guests. We didn't really see why there was a point in it needing to be 200 square feet to advertise to the entire community. That also felt excessive to us. The sign does not just face the resort property, it also faces the entire neighborhood that is above the hot springs. So it is very visible up there if anybody goes up on that hill. Do we want to do what is best for a single business, or do we want to do what is best for the community? And I think this goes back to what John was trying to say is 500 square foot of signage seems like a lot of visual stimulation for one business. Is that a precedent we want to be setting? There's a 200 square foot sign. This will be now their second over 200 square foot sign for the resort. Is that something that a town of our size wants to have? It becomes very visually noisy after a while. And what happens when the next business wants to put up multiple 200 square foot signs? That seems like it starts to get quite excessive. And I think going back to a few of the things that John was saying in section 6, a variance if granted will not result in extraordinary gain or use. I think going from 120 square foot of signage to over 500 square foot of signage for one business seems like an extraordinary gain of use. So those were just some concerns that the Planning Commission had as far as setting precedents on allowing an addition 200 square foot to their already 300 square foot of total signage that they take up in the town.
Mayor James, I had proposed to proceed through the factors, and Councilwoman Campbell had made a suggestion that this go back to P&Z. I appreciate the comments by Councilmember Nelson. I'm prepared to go through those. I don't necessarily disagree with Councilwoman Campbell, although we did come here tonight to request the council to move forward with it. I think it's worth consideration running through the factors as we stand today, where the council determines where we want to go from here. In response to your comment, Councilwoman Campbell, it would be a one-time variance. As variances always are, they don't create some continuing right to to do what, or similar activities or non-conformances by the applicant. So this is just for one sign. There were a lot of comments. McCall.
I was saying, if it's a one-time variance, wasn't the 200 square foot sign on the green building a one-time variance for a 200 square foot sign? So this will be their second variance for a 200 square foot sign.
Yeah.
So what's going to stop? What's going to stop an additional 200 square foot sign variance?
Each time a variance application comes through, it comes before the town council. There was a prior application in 2018 for a different sign.
On a different piece of property, I might add, because I believe the ordinance talks about it for a property, not for a business, right? So when you keep adding up all the numbers, that we're talking about a delta between the 125 square feet and the 200 square feet on one piece of property. The fact that they own multiple pieces of property, I think you're kind of mushing it all together and totaling up to 500 square feet. They're, in essence, they're requesting a 200 square foot sign for, I believe, 125 foot, where the total is 125 foot, not 500 square feet. That's another piece of property with another sign variance, I believe.
And I believe that those pieces of property are much smaller and would therefore not have signs as large that exist on them if we allowed 2 square foot per frontage per sign. I assumed, and I think the council assumed that it was per business. That I guess would be.
I think the ordinance is written by property, not by business.
I guess my thoughts moving forward, Mr. Harding came here, let's let him go through his presentation on it. And I'm totally okay with, and think that maybe Councilman Campbell's idea of sending it back to planning and zoning is a fair thing, especially if Councilman Nelson feels that the members that were at the last planning commission meeting that didn't vocalize their concerns of the deal and assumed it was dead. Maybe it should have been clarified to them that the planning commission does not approve a variance or deny a variance. It's the governing body, and that's the town council. So I think we should move forward with Mr. Harding's presentation. We can listen to that and, and once he's finished, we can decide on how to move forward, whether it's going back to planning commission or having a vote tonight. I think it'd be prudent to go back to planning commission and maybe address some of the concerns that were raised tonight, but I think we should allow him to move forward.
In the interest of efficiency, I'll try and be as quick as I can about that. We've had a lot of discussion already. 1872-010 or subsection C requires the council to evaluate 8 specific criteria. Issue number 1 is whether or not the variance would authorize a permitted use other than that specifically enumerated in the zoning district in which the variance is sought. The resort is in a retail business district zone. Having the sign would not allow them to make use of that property beyond what they're already making use of and authorized to do with the property. They're in the resort classification and the base camp signs for the business, which is actually enumerated under resort. It's for their equipment rentals, ATVs and stuff, and those items. So the use would not change. It's simply allowed in what the resort is already doing. Factor number 2 is whether the extraordinary circumstances referenced by Councilman Nelson relate to the land or building for which the variance is sought, and literal enforcement of the provisions of the title, whether they'll result in unnecessary hardship and deprive the applicant of a reasonable use of his or her land or building. As has come up tonight, if we were looking at the resort as just everything they own, within the municipal boundaries of the town of Saratoga, it's somewhere around 20%. They're a massive landowner. And if we looked at it under that scale, the town ordinances would be tremendously unfair to the resort because the maximum sign area is achieved in only 60 lineal feet of frontage. The resort has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of lineal feet of frontage. However, my interpretation of the ordinance is similar to Councilman Hutchins. It is regarding each parcel, and the parcel that the base camp building is on is a separate parcel. And so and we're applying for the variance for that parcel.
If I may interrupt for just 1 second. Initially, when the resort was pursuing the variance before they elected not to put up the sign, I did consult Ms. France, the town attorney, about the 300-foot notice, who all needs to be noticed. Like Mr. Harding said, they own a ton of property in town, and it was, do we have to notice everything that's up on the hill where they own the property? And that was, and Jamie, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that the notice was given to that 300-foot because that was considered a separate parcel.
300 feet within the parcel. Yes, not the entire footprint of the inn. Yes.
And that's correct. And an excellent clarification, Mayor James. Those people that have approved it are within that 300-foot envelope of that specific parcel. And so that's the parcel we're looking at, which itself has two frontages and still would, if we counted frontage with no limitation, it would amount to a lot. It's quite a large piece. And this was discussed at the last meeting. The extraordinary circumstances in regard to the design relate to how that lot is set up. And as Councilman Hutchins explained, that parking lot actually drops down about 8 feet, which would make a monument sign impractical because it would have to be a very tall monument sign to be seen from the road. And even a freestanding sign recessed would have to be quite tall, whereas the rooftop sign, where it sits, if you're at the road, is almost just over eye level, because that lot sinks down. So the resort felt that was the most practical solution, and the size is due to the setback of the building from the road. I mean, they wanted it to be legible and clearly visible from the roadway for their customers. So that's how it was designed, and also designed to present a clean and professional appearance. Under the existing code, it actually allows it to be lower than what a freestanding sign would be. As is, when the sign is up, the top of the sign is 25 feet. The bottom of the sign is 15 feet. The sign ordinances allow a freestanding sign to have a base 30 feet. So it could be as high as 30 to 45 feet. So it's actually a lot lower than something that if they had to put it on a freestanding structure would be. And so the extraordinary circumstances relate to, the size of the parcel and just the challenges associated with putting a nice piece of signage on that property that can be seen well. And that is, despite some people's concerns, that as far as the resort is concerned, as unobtrusive as possible. And that's the resort's, of course, that's the resort's take on it, but that was the intent. Factor number 3 is that the extraordinary circumstances are not something created by the owner of the property, and they don't represent a general condition of the district in which the property is located. I don't think properties are unique. That specific property, the way it's inset, I think is unique to it alone. Certainly there's other low-lying properties that might have sign challenges, but I don't think it's anything which could be called a general condition of the retail business district. So moving on to item number 4, the variance if granted will not substantially or permanently injure any adjacent conforming property. As this matter doesn't relate to use or a change in use, I believe it will have no impact on adjacent conforming property within that district. Factor number 5 is whether the variance would alter the character of the district in which it is located. Number 1, we're in a retail business district. And we're in a resort use within the retail business district. And I would argue that not only is it not going to alter the character of the district, this is exactly the character of the district. It's a sign displaying a specifically enumerated resort use within a resort area that faces resort property. And I have not driven up on the ridge above the inn. There may be locations in which the sign would be seen. I'm certainly not going to suggest it can't be seen from other places. But it is perpendicular to the road facing the inn, and the majority of the viewing is the resorts and the resort's customers' view. Regarding factor number 6, there's questions whether the variance, if granted, whether it would result in extraordinary gain in use, service or income from the property when compared with adjacent conforming uses in the same district. Again, I believe this would have no impact on that. It's an existing use. The variance simply allows guidance to customers to find the use that already exists within the resort area. Regarding adjacent conforming uses, again, I don't believe it would have an impact. And the resort isn't adjacent to similar uses within the retail business district either. It's across from itself. It's next to its own driving range, and then it's next to a road. So this is kind of isolated in that regard. It is within the town boundaries, however. Item number 7 requires if the variance, if granted, is the minimum variance in the least modification that will afford the relief sought. Councilmember Nelson raised an issue of whether regarding size. Respectfully, I don't believe that is what the ordinance speaks to here. In my view, this is speaking to whether what is sought by the application is the only thing that could be done to allow that which is sought. And in this case, it's a sign. The only way to get permission to have a non-conforming sign is to apply for a variance. So in that respect, I believe the variance application is the least modification that will afford the relief sought. I mean, it is the only way we can get permission to have it. And lastly, regarding factor number 8, is whether the variance will be in harmony with the spirit of the title and whether it will adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare. And I'll start at the end there. I don't believe it has any impact on public health, safety, or welfare because it doesn't relate to a use of property. It's a sign. It's related to advertisement and direction of traffic. However, on harmony of the spirit of the title, where the spirit of the title is to allow non-conforming uses which aren't against the public interest. And Saratoga has a lot of public interest, neighbors' interest in what people are applying for in variances. They have the interest in supporting local businesses. They have the interest in regulation of public peace and welfare in terms of safety. And there's a lot going on. This is true in any community. And the best we can go on is what was said at the meetings, because that's how we are put on notice of what is impacting the spirit of the public interest. And the big issues, as I said out, were the lighting, which is not part of the application, and the fact that the sign is up during that variance application, so we took it down. And that was done. The next public hearing a month later, there were no public comments. There were comments by the committee members, but the public did not show up to voice a concern. And then, so that's the 8 factors, and I believe the resort.
Sorry to interrupt, but I have to object to that. And I want the council members sitting there who were not at the meeting to know that there were absolutely people there in opposition to the sign.
And I guess I have another problem. Sorry, John. When I was on the planning commission and people came forward with signage, you have access to the ordinance prior to putting the sign up, correct?
Generally speaking,
yeah.
Yes.
So this whole problem could have been solved if you had brought plans to the planning commission to be approved in the first place, correct?
I agree 100%, Council.
So that's my question. Why weren't the ordinances followed? Why was it just put up without input from the planning commission to begin with? Because I have seen plans for signage that were corrected by the planning commission before this ever occurred.
I can't speak 100%, but prior to my involvement, I became involved because the application process, that was not done correctly. That's exactly why I became involved. But you're absolutely correct. But for a time machine, I would go back and we'd do this a lot different. But the only tool we have available to correct the matter as it is now is the variance application.
And to that point, I think, Devon, they were advised well in advance. And had they continued with their variance application that they had submitted, we'd still be sitting right here right now. Them not obeying the ordinances or following the ordinances has no impact on, in order for them to have a rooftop sign of that size, we would have had to have 2 public hearings and then would come before the council, regardless of whether they got the cart in front of the horse or not.
Okay. I'm still going to stick with, I'd rather hear from the entire commission and their recommendation and more public input if, as you say, there was no public input on the second hearing before I would proceed on approving or disapproving the variance.
I guess one thing that, after listening to Mr. Harding's presentation, I would ask town legal counsel, is there anything that you object to in the 8 findings that Mr. Harding?
I mean, it's the council's decision whether to grant this or not. I think you can decide for yourselves whether these reasons that he's given meet the variance factors that you have to consider. I think that this, on its face and what he's described, probably would pass muster and it would be appropriate to grant, but this is not my decision to make. This is the council's decision to make, and it's your decision and your duty to consider what he's presented and weigh those for your own selves.
I think my final comment on it is I just read through the entire variance section twice. I think the planning and zoning commissions doing their job in reviewing the supposed to work is that our planning officer, if he rejects a permit, that permit is presented to the planning and zoning officer, and then they follow the steps. If the variance is sought, they follow the steps, and there's a public hearing. And at that public hearing, the wording is, at the public hearing, the property owner seeking the variance will be present to answer any questions that the planning commission or the property owners within a 300 feet radius has. And then after that, it says that we advertise another public hearing. But it appears that the intent of the ordinance is for the immediate landowners around the property or the ones that have the final say in the matter is whether or not they agree with it. And I believe that's a 50% vote, or if more than 50% disagree with it, then it goes through. So my question then, and then it looks like the last 3 paragraphs, it says the city council's the one will have the final say on whether a variance is granted or not. And so my question, I guess, is at which public hearing, which group has precedent, right? There's 2 public hearings, the way I'm reading this. One is with the planning commission and the immediate neighbors, and the other one is with the general public, but it does not give any it does not appear that there's any say in the second one on whether they can approve or disapprove. So my question, I guess, for Eugene would be, what is the intent of the ordinance or the way it's written? Is it the intent that the immediate property owners have to say, or is it that the general public at large has to say?
Well, I've read this ordinance a lot too. And I think one of the requirements, let me read here before I speak.
Can I suggest that by coming to the council for the final approval or rejection, that because the process is designed that way, that it would, and the council is representatives of the entirety of the town and not just those within 300 foot of a particular variance request, that would indicate that we, the elected officials of the governing body, have to make a judgment call based on the entirety of the community?
I wouldn't disagree with that, John. But I also know in council chambers, in front of, or at council meetings, it has been suggested by yourself that if the neighbors don't have an issue with it, why is the council stand in the way of it?
When I read this, and appreciate, please, that I'm on the spot here, reading it and being asked for an answer at an open meeting. It looks like to me that the point of the first hearing is to put the neighbors on notice that this person wants to do something, and those affected neighbors and anyone, because it's a public hearing, gets to come ask questions about what they want to do. Then after that, there's a second public hearing. And the way I read Part D is that a requirement of passing the variance is to get 50% of your neighbors within that radius to consent. I think that's one piece that has to happen before you can approve it. But the ultimate decision of whether to grant it or not rests with you. It does not have to be consistent with what the commission recommends, although they play a really important role in evaluating it and making good recommendations. But the ultimate decision is yours.
Okay, starting, anything else to add?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I think that's an important point that Ms. France makes regarding the decision flow here. The variance ordinance has a set schedule of events that has to happen, and those have occurred. Specific one that had the big hurdle before it goes to council to evaluate the factors is what the neighbors think. And in this case, we've got more than 50%. We gained approval of all the neighbors but one before our public hearings. There were definitely people present at the second planning commission meeting. There were no vocal objections by the public or approvals for that matter. Not to be misleading, nobody said anything at the second public hearing. And then it moved on and there was discussion amongst the committee. So the process has been followed, and the next step is to come before town council, whose authority as the governing body is the approval or denial of the variance application. I think the town council can do what it chooses in order to make its determination, however, which could include sending it back to planning committee if that is what council determines is necessary to make its decision. So I think that is within the scope of the ordinance. It's also within the scope of the ordinance, however, to make a determination as it stands. I think both of those two things are possible, but the authority rests here. In regards to the sign, I'd like to just revisit the business purpose. This is to promote a business activity for the resort. And then this sign was designed to be unobtrusive and tasteful. It's on a rooftop, yes, but it's not on the rooftop of a 3-story building. It's not a billboard. It's not temporary. It's not going to change. It is, however, far from the road and in a recessed parking lot. So this allows it to be visible. And it's for the purpose of resort activity. And its primary effect is on resort property. And so with those things, I will remain standing here to answer questions if there are any from the council. We did come here tonight with the request that it be approved, but we will defer to the council in regards to whatever the council deems appropriate as the next step. And also, I would note that the GM of the resort is here, Gina Parsons, if there's any questions by a council member for her.
Is there any questions for either Mr. Harding or Ms. Parsons?
Say, if the primary purpose of the sign is for resort activity, why does the sign need to be 200 square feet? It's on resort property right across the street from the main lodge. You don't need a 200 square foot sign. Again, let your guests know that this amenity exists. You can hand them a map at the front desk when they walk in. If that is their primary goal for that sign, that seems excessive.
I'm happy to speak to that. Number one, a lot of resort customers come for that resort purpose, the rental of ATVs and things. So that's going to be their primary destination that they're looking for. And the size is purely in regards to the distance from the roadway. I think it was brought up earlier by committee member Burrow about a 60 square foot sign on Main Street. That is easy to read when it's right there on Main Street. When you're looking at a sign that is 250 feet from the road, it has to be bigger to be read. In addition, we're talking about the size of the sign. Over half of the sign is a design. It's a mountainous, artistic depiction. And the language portion of the sign is approximately 100 square feet. Just to be responsive to that point.
Okay, if there's no other questions from the council. I think D-Ron's thought of sending it back to the planning commission is probably warranted. If she wants to make a motion to that effect.
Mayor, council, if I may suggest, I mean, it's, D-Ron, it's up to you if you think that that's what you would like to see happen. I would support it. But perhaps rather than wait another month, kicking it back to planning commission would mean that they would have the opportunity to revisit that second week of September. And it would be back in front of us a month from now, third week in September. Perhaps a way to streamline this that I think may accomplish the goal that at least I'm partially trying to achieve would be to table it until the next council meeting and ask that those members that participated throughout the process of planning commission meetings and hearings come to the next council meeting to be more explicit in vocalizing their thoughts.
Or we could have a special meeting with advertisement to the public to come to as well for the next council meeting. That's another idea, I guess.
I think the one thing, John, that I would say, and maybe a reasonable request from Mr. Harding is at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, these 8 factors were never discussed. It says, I believe, that the council must make these findings. And I would say it would be fair if we're going to take it back, or if we're just going to table it for a month, that it needs to go back to the planning commission meeting, whether it's just for information purposes of, hey, council could not move forward one way or another with the variance request. these were some of the items that Mr. Harding presented to the council. And at that point that the council would like more input from the planning commission meeting. Like I said, if we're gonna have this, if we're gonna table this decision for a month, to invite or members of the planning commission and the public to come before the council or at that meeting, that I think some of that information should also be shared with the planning commission.
So I'll make a motion to send the variance process back to the planning commission so that the council can have more definition from the public and the commission.
Okay, there's a motion, second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor James, council members.
Thank you. Other updates from the planning commission. There was a public hearing for another sign variance at our last meeting. That was for request for variance. They will be hearing, or there will be a public hearing regarding that sign variance request at our next commission meeting. The planning commission is also considering changes to the sign ordinance, or there's been discussion of that. There's been discussion of amendment to the retail business portion of the ordinances. There's also been discussion of looking at how to deal with short-term rentals, primarily the VRBO, Airbnbs here within town. Those discussions are ongoing. McCollum, have missed anything else that the commission's really discussed? So that's what we're working on. Our next commission meeting is September 13th at 5:30 here at council chambers. Moving on to the Saratoga Airport Advisory Board.
Okay, before you have ASA 003A looking for reimbursement of $323,500. This is a 90-10 grant, 90% by FAA, or I'm sorry, by YDOT, 10% by town. This is just the continuing thing. We're looking for a signature from Mayor James to ask for reimbursement.
Okay, is there a motion to sign the request for reimbursement?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Second one. Is ASA 004A, a request for reimbursement, $323,166. This one is 100% federal and looking for a signature from Mayor James to sign for reimbursement.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
As you could probably tell, the entrance road is started up at the airport. And the only other thing that I had was from the meeting, we have the last ordinance or agreement with the, when the airport was aboard. It's from 1976. So Georgia put it into a Word format and is sent to all the airport advisory board members to work and maybe bring another ordinance back to town. Other than that, the next meeting is September 12th, 2022 at 3:30 p.m. here in Chambers.
Okay, moving on to Schweppes.
No new updates right now, and the next meeting is September 19th at 6 p.m.
Okay, any new business? Is there a motion to enter executive session?
Make a motion to enter executive session to discuss personnel and matters of litigation in accordance with Wyoming Statute 16-4-405A, 2, and 3.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Don't know, I'll give you a call myself.